I don't know
Yeah,
what else.
whatever you can show on your social media. But I think part um of the heavy work comes from the person when they have to do some introspection, and going inside and see what you really want and do that work. But it's very, I think it's very difficult because I don't think people nowadays are very interested in the idea of like looking inside because they're scared of what they might find when they pay undistracted attention to it. So it's very difficult for us to understand what we want. I agree. And also I wanted to say something about the boundaries because it is tied to what therapists advise, which is something that we shouldn't do. Instead of like talking about boundaries in every corner, looking at the boundaries in every corner and having a conversation about, how our parents saw boundaries in their age, I don't know, when they got married, and all of that. So it's what I'm trying to say is that the mental health is actually inclining to the direction that it shouldn't, which is giving advice, and they're paying attention to more superficial things. And we talked about social media, and I shared a clinical case that I have a client who is in the field of Hollywood, and she's an actress and all of this. And it's taken a little bit for her to get to where she wants. She wants to be a writer for, I don't know if it's documentaries or like fiction or a comedy, I don't remember. But the thing is that she looks around, and every time she goes on social media, she sees her friends who have the same career. They made it for like 2 shows or something like that, but they're making money out of Instagram instead of like having a good job like she has, like being a casting director, making money and all of this. So she compares herself to other people. Like it's very easy for them to buy a house. It's very easy for them to buy a car. It's very easy for them to, travel around the world. And yet here I am working, and I can't do anything. And she engages with this discourse of like comparing myself to other, and I'm not in the best place, where in reality she is, but she's comparing to this social media people. I don't know if it makes sense what I'm saying.
No, for sure, but I think that's the whole. I mean, I was, there are like plenty of example, like people going to the gym and taking pictures and not working out, right? People renting a very expensive mansion and taking pictures and acting like they are rich. Even our, former president lied on his financial, papers to be in Forbes, right? So what is about this image that we are offering that is so captivating, right? Like so great, and that's, I think, where we cannot we cannot go with rationality, and we cannot go with the idea of we are still dealing with the same issues that capitalism brought decades ago, because this is a different form of alienation. If in the industrialized way of the Fordism or all those times, or even in the Soviet, like the idea, the value was to work hard because that was gonna make you somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays that's gone. The idea now is that as long as they believe, that's where you get it, right? And then you get more, and then and actually that's true, because then you get more followers because people believe you, and then they start to pay you. And it's really funny because, especially my Kim Kardashian, and I wish Dadras was here, but Kim Kardashian, who is kind of like the biggest, I guess, one of the biggest accounts in social media, in Instagram. She has to work really well, not she, but her team or whoever is there, from makeup to Photoshop, they have to work really hard to create an image in social media, right? So she's not that. Even herself is not what she's putting out there in social media. And people who are far away from having those resources want to be Kim Kardashian without understanding that not even Kim Kardashian is Kim Kardashian. So is this, it's just a fantasy. It's just like an illusion of, but not saying that it's less important or less real, because these people actually make money, and they make money,
they do,
right? Like
big time, yeah.
So again, like where is that promise coming from? Who said that because she's working hard, she should be having the same as these people? And that promise comes a lot from nowadays, from mental health, or from these values that we try to put on people. If you believe in yourself, if you love yourself, you're gonna get there. How can you promise that? It's a big risk to promise somebody everything is gonna be okay as long as you love yourself.
Yeah, and I think that's positive psychology. It's actually a cult and a movement about all of that promise, self-help and all that. It actually, thinking happy thoughts will magically take you to a happy life, successful at work, a great relationship, a great sex, everything is better in life. And no, it's no.
and again, because we shouldn't be pursuing happiness as mental health professionals. Because as long as we are, for me, that's the big problem. We are used nowadays, we are used to analyze everything morally. Happiness is a good moral value. If somebody is sad or is anxious, it's a bad thing. So we are engaged in this judgment. Like, it's very interesting. Like, I know it's going to be kind of like controversial, but for example, I was these two different couples, in which one of them, it was a male who wanted to explore his sexuality further with other women, right, in a heterosexual relationship. And so the feedback from some therapists was, oh, here we go, another male dominant trying to oppress this poor woman and explore his sexuality, and he doesn't give a shit about this person. Like, everything was morally charged against this person, which some of that true, some of that not, but it wasn't my work. Like that was something that I had clear. Another situation where it was this woman who wanted to have, also married in a monogamous relationship, and she wanted to have some bisexual relationships. She wanted to open up to have like a polyamory kind of relationships, and the husband wasn't ready for this. And so the feedback was now, oh, here we go again, a man who is oppressing this woman from exploring her sexuality. And I'm like, when is going to be the point where we understand that we are not here to impose ideology? Because I'm sure that what we understand now as feminism is going to look very different 10 or 5 years after, and what we are doing now is basically positioning ourselves as therapists as the ones who hold the better truth, right? And when a client is, and I gave you this example too, I think these clinical examples are good to portray a little bit what we are talking about. So about this girl, she's an activist, feminist, very intellectually, very, very educated. And she has a history of 3 different relationships. Each of them lasted around 3, 4, or even longer. And all of them were abusive. All of them were like emotionally or even physically abusive. she finally engaged in a relationship with somebody who was all the opposite of these people. He was very caring, he was very loving, and she actually, acknowledged that. That relationship lasted 2 months. It was unbearable. And then after a little bit of pause, she went back to an abusive kind of relationship. So what we are doing when we are saying you should pay attention to the red flags, you should pay attention to if they are like too jealous, if they are not jealous, if they are contacting you, especially in this era of like, I don't know, Instagram, WhatsApp, all these things, like it's hypervigilance. Like the Foucault's panopticon is like stronger than ever. We think we have freedom, but you can see if somebody's on their phone or not by seeing if they're online or not. So, anyways, my point is what we are doing when we are taking somebody like this who knows even more than us what feminism is about, what oppression is about, what kind of relationship she doesn't want. And yet, for some reason, she engages in these relationships over and over again. What we do when we say you should pay more attention because this guy had the same red flags that the other guy, we end up, first of all, assuming that she knows the reasons why she's engaging in these relationships, and that she's not willing to change. She doesn't love herself enough to change. So we are another layer of oppression that this woman is going to suffer, right?
I think that's the wrong language. I think the misuse of language is really problematic in the mental health.
And not acknowledging that there are things beyond rationality, beyond
absolutely
consciousness, right? So anyways, I think, I don't know how we are doing with the time. We have, I guess, 5-10 more minutes or 5 minutes, and we can ask questions to the people.
Yeah.
But anyways, I want to just, I guess, reinforce a little bit this idea of this fake dichotomy between the couple or the friendship or the long-lasting relationship being a prison, a place where you are objectified and consumed, versus the freedom of exploring everything and getting everything you deserve. I don't know who determined that we deserve it, but somebody did, and so we should, pursue it. I think this dichotomy, and it's kind of like it has been universalized in our language, in our discourses a lot. It really confronts people with further challenges, because it's true, they didn't get it in the relationship and a relationship is complicated. It's always complicated. There is no, simple and straightforward relationships. But now we have a person who is lonely, who doesn't have any meaningful relationships, and who is confronting with the challenges of being in this, kind of like this alienation to this American dream or Hollywood kind of ideals or Instagram kind of ideals all along. And it's really vulnerable. Like we are making them even more vulnerable, because I feel like the value of these connections, the value of these relationships, it's being very underestimated. And we talked about this like little research. I wasn't able to find it, but how connections, the summary would be that in order to heal somebody from an addiction, what they need is connections. They need meaningful relationships, not only sobriety. They need something that fulfills their life. So I think it was a lot of different things together.
But I think we convey the right message, because what we're trying to say is that we need to celebrate the uniqueness of the relationships instead of like just thinking about disposing relationships just because there's a red flag. Or, you know, when I talk about reassess, is that when you sit down and you think about the relationship, you look at it from every corner that you can, instead of saying, oh, it's just toxic, let me just dispose and see what's next. Then you're going to end up 50 years old, 60 years old, you're going to be by yourself, isolated. And we know that because you dispose your friendships, you dispose your relationships, romantically. So it gets to a point of like, if when you reassess and you think about your relationships, is it really that important to dispose so you can, I don't know if I'm making myself clear.
Yeah, move on and find a better one or whatever.
Exactly. So you're gonna be in the search for the rest of your life. So happiness is never gonna get to you, because there's no such definition, you know.
Right.
So, and yeah, go ahead.
No, I mean, yeah, I think that's mainly the point. And with this idea, trying to put this thought together. Yeah, I mean, this idea of like disposing people also turns oneself indisposable.
Mm-hmm.
So that brings a lot of anxiety too. We see how hard, especially in Southern California, how hard and how anxiety provoking is to meet somebody. I mean, this is not natural, this is not given. This is very specific to something, it is a phenomenon that has been produced for some reason. It's not the same in other places, not even in the entire USA, but in the world, like it's not okay that we cannot have an honest conversation with somebody. And the other piece of that is the immaturity that it brings. The relationship and the commitment confronts us constantly with our failures, or with our shortcomings, with the things that we don't know, with the things that we do wrong. And so because we value the relationship, we try to improve. Because we consider the other as a person that we are establishing a relationship with. Now, the other side of the story, if you don't engage in this kind of like more meaningful relationship with partners, friends, or family, is that there is no other. The other person is just an object that you are using to have that moment of happiness and whatever. That never challenges you. That never confronts you. And you stay with your own truth. It's like people, following CNN but not following Fox, and follow, Putin is bad, the Europe is good, and all this dichotomy kind of simplistic thinking. Very mature, and the reactions are also immature, right? Then we see a person running away from conflict or being triggered because this is what they are used to. This is how not well developed are their schemes or their resources to engage in a confrontation with somebody. Anything you want to add, or we should open up for questions?
Well, I think that, the closing thought that I do want to share is that we're not pushing people to stay in abusive or like toxic relationship. It's just that we're trying to shine the light on another perspective, just making sure if anybody from this group can say, oh, okay, there are different perspectives about this, then our job is done. It's just that it's moving away from the totalizing the thought of toxicity, or like being in a relationship that it's disposable and all of this. So I think that's the closing thought.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree with you. I think that's a place where we should be careful, because we don't want to be advocating for this, stay in an unhealthy relationship or no matter what. That's not the idea.
Exactly. Exactly.